All right, we'll get things going. So thanks everyone who has come. I know there's a few people who couldn't make it, so looking forward to sharing the recording of this one, especially as Jenny Adams is going to share a lot of the experience she's had coaching, mainly for Papo, but maybe she wants to go into some of the other coaching stuff that she's done with other teams if she finds it relevant. But obviously our first area of interest is coaching at the club level here in this group for now. So we'll let Jenny just describe a little bit how long she's been coaching with Papo for, and what she's learned over those years, and what kind of coaching they've found works best. So thanks, Jenny.
Slide should be beginning. Alrighty, are you seeing it?
Yep, looks good.
Yep. Okay. So Jean asked me to talk. I don't really think that we do anything particularly revolutionary or that you're going to say, wow, that's I wish we thought of that or something. But anyway, he kept asking me, so I thought the easiest way to get rid of him was to just say yes eventually. So that's what I'm talking about. So we have kind of semi-regular weekly trainings, not always weekly, but that's kind of the ambition. And I guess the first ones that I started organising were after I lived in Sweden, and then I came back to be living in New Zealand. So then I guess my inspiration in doing it was the weekly trainings that I had been doing as part of my club in Uppsala, Ukko-Linja. So we had at least 2 technical trainings per week that you could turn up to. They were either on the local of our clubhouse map or close by maps, and they were often sort of some kind of technique training, but sometimes sort of courses. So I was trying to replicate something like that, and kind of motivated or thinking about the fact that other sports that you do train every week, like hockey. I'd obviously grown up, or maybe not obvious to you, but obviously when you play a sport like that, you train every week. Like that's what you do. So it sort of seemed that we should be kind of doing the same thing for orienteering, and it was what was being done in Scandinavia with orienteering. And when I first came back to live in Christchurch after, I know that people like Greg Flynn always used to go on about South Island events and dodgy control placement and things like that, which got me a little bit aggravated, of course. But he likes to wind people up, so you shouldn't get aggravated because it's just what he's trying to do. But so I sort of was thinking about what we could kind of do about that, really. And it's not much. You can't really tell people just put controls in the right place, but I just thought, if people were technically better, they're more likely to put controls in the right place. So it wasn't really about teaching them about doing course setting better, but just overall having technical trainings that would raise the overall competency of everybody. So it was as much about that, just improving general technical competency as much as like performance. So so that was what I said about doing. On the next slide, I say what we were doing and then so overall, Carson will call this as one of my hobby horses, because I have certain things that I go on and on about, and I talk about them all the time and get on my hobby horse. I ride them around the house, but one of them is kind of practice makes permanent. So the general idea that you do something over and over again to build habits and your skills become instinctive, and that's kind of something that's clear in other sports, especially when there's an obvious technical thing like the way you hit a ball in tennis or in hockey. You are sort of coached on that specific skill, and you practice with drills, and over again you hit the ball until you don't have to think about the way you're holding your stick or holding your racket. And in orienteering, it's not kind of so obvious that you're repeatedly doing something quite the same as hitting a ball, but there's certain things that you need to be doing, like checking your direction and the sort of thumbing and having attack points and catching features and so on, and it all has to be kind of automatic. And so my idea more in a lot of the trainings, as I say, we do have things with skills, but just is that you're doing it often enough and sort of regularly enough, close enough spacing between them that you can actually kind of build it up as a habit. And I think that was one of the big things that really helped me when I lived in Sweden, is that so I had been living in Britain before that and got to do loads more orienteering than I had in New Zealand, but really I don't think that my technical level went up as much as when I was in Sweden, where I just went orienteering 2 or 3 times a week, and just really got a habit so that no longer did I actually have to think of those things. I was automatically doing them. And I think that's a lot with Carsten, for example. He'll say he just runs. He always says, I just run. You know, people say, what you do? He always says, I just run. But it's because all the things that he does are so instinctive to him. And so he doesn't think, I've got to find a catching feature behind the controller, I've got to have a catching an attack point. But when you actually talk to him about how he did the leg, he always does have an attack point of what he's going to go in off or what he's done, but it's all been very instinctive and automatic for him, so that he hasn't thought of them in those terms or anything. They just happen for him. And the more that you can do in your subconscious, so it's your subconscious kind of doing it, your conscious is left available for the bigger decisions. So mainly to me is that you need to be practicing, and often in a competition you do whatever's fastest, and it's the same again when I say when people are playing hockey, is that they'll just need to get the ball up the field. So practice is when we're going to learn to hit the ball, but in the game you haven't got probably time. So if you can't hit the ball yet, just do it however you do it, and we'll come back and practice it and then until it's good enough that we can do it in game. And because we only ever really do races, people just do the same thing that sort of works for them in the race, because usually the good technique does take a little bit longer at first, but once you've practiced it over and over, then it will become automatic, and you will be able to do it in your competition. So kind of the philosophy is that if you need to have those regular trainings so that you can do things in an orderly practicing way, that you're not going to be worried about how fast you're going. So more opportunities where nobody can see your time or knows how long you took, so that you feel that you can invest the time in doing it and properly. So that kind of was what I was wanting to provide, was that kind of regular enough to make things habits. And yeah, I guess so. When we offer trainings, we do have, and I'll show some that are techniques. So this course is to practice compass bearings, or this course is to practice traffic lighting, or things. But actually, to me, I mean, and I think they're important. You do some of those, but I actually just like doing courses where I'll make sure I'm doing it correctly around and try to keep lubricated my my good habits. And so yeah, just I'll do my thing all the way around the course. I don't always need it to be a particular technique that I'm practicing. I quite like just doing a course without any time pressure, that I'll do it properly, and I'd as well do that weekly as something else. But when we do have beginners, they are a chance to so the trainings are kind of open to everybody, and even if you know all the different skills, that I feel that just as much as anything else you should come and train. So it's not, I mean, at one training camp or something, that a boy sort of at the end of it, he said, I don't think I learned anything new at this camp, as if that, and then it was sort of like it wasn't useful because I didn't learn anything new. I've already learned all those things. And I'm sort of like, yeah, but you need to practice them. You don't just learn them and then you do them perfectly every time now. And I sort of said, like you play rugby and they probably each week you don't learn a new skill, but you need to practice it. You're not going to be perfect at that skill just after the first week you learnt it. So having lots of opportunities to practice, and not necessarily that they're learning something new, but also having the time that then the beginners can ask questions and come along. So they're kind of a multi-purpose training as well. Right. So initially, as I said, when I came back from Scandinavia, that was kind of my aim, and then I did them on Thursday evenings, I think it was. I was trying to remember looking back, and that was before I had children, and I had loads of time then, and well, loads more time. And now looking back, I mean, I don't know if I thought I had loads of time then, but it certainly is loads of time compared to now when well, it's almost coming free again. Now they don't need so much shuttling around those children. But yeah, then I had evenings where it was just about me and what I was doing, and not everybody else. So I set off then of doing these Thursday evening sessions that were pretty regularly most of the year round, and so we did them with headlamps in the winter and the light during that. And I reckon training with a headlamp is great, because it makes you really focus on what is around you, and so it turns areas that are really familiar and easier into being much harder, because when you have so, and I'd run loads of night trainings at -10 or 20 in Sweden, so I was it didn't seem a silly thing to be doing, to be training with a headlamp. So that was what I did until, and I think I did them for a few years. I can't really remember how long, and then I did have children, and then it was not a practical thing to be doing at all for me. And we kind of evolved more into having trainings that we offer on a Sunday, and that's currently what we do. And so we try to have trainings on so that people can orienteer once a week. So if there isn't an orienteering event on, we try to have trainings, and we currently kind of more technology and things are there. We leave the flags out, or we use tape, just orange fabric. We tend to try to number them, because we've so in the old days when it wasn't when we maybe was more people like Jamie Stewart and Aaron and Chris, I always want to take some of the credit for Chris becoming a good orienteer, because he was pretty crap when he first started turning up to our trainings, but he used to spend hours at them and go out again and do them a few more times, because Chris didn't really like being crap at things. And he was always an orienteer when he was younger, but he did other things. And then he was one of the real people who came every week to the trainings that we did when I first got back from Scandinavia. And yeah, and in those days, I think that we often really had things numbered. We were probably mostly all technically able enough to know that we were completely in the wrong place. But now I've found that, especially in the sort of sand dunes, because we have quite a wide range of people doing the trainings, that they do like the reassurance to know that they are at the correct place. So we do have quite often numbers on them. Yeah, so that's basically what we're doing. And we're like kind of lucky, I think, because we have quite a lot of public access maps, which are pretty within easy reach of the city to sort of get to, so that they're realistic for people aren't, always necessarily going to drive hours to go into a training, and you can fit it into your weekend. And by leaving the things out, then people who want to go away for a weekend still can go and do the training during the week. I don't know how many people do it, but we hear back from various people, and actually some of the older people in the club quite like it. They'll come and do some on Sunday and then come back again during the week, because they want to do some more, and they like to be able to just go quite slowly around and things. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of, well, that's not going to be able to work for all places, because if you don't have areas that are easily public accessible, because these are things like places like Bottle Lake and the forest areas along near Wood End, Pines Beach. Those are places that anybody is allowed to go for a run or bike in, so we don't have to kind of get permission, and you don't really want to be mucking up your landowners and things with people wandering in at any old time. So those kind of ones where we leave the flags out are there. But I mean, and we also have them on not particularly really exciting maps, like Victoria Park or whatever, you can still do different trainings. I mean, to me, the biggest thing is that you're having the habit of going out with a map and you're doing that regularly so that everything becomes a habit. And now we often kind of think about trying to prepare people for particular events. So coming up to nationals, we try and put some things on in native forest because we know it's going to be native, or you know, when it's nationals in sand dunes, we're specifically trying to do things in sand dunes or whatever, just to get people ready. But lots of people turn up to the trainings anyway. It's not, and they're just happy to have some trainings. It's just kind of in our own minds that we'll prepare them for some event for those that are or trials or something, who are going for those that we are providing something for them. But they're also, you know, just as useful for anybody to turn up to, so it's not like they're ever closed. And yeah, so that's, I guess, what we mostly do as a club. We also have one or two, at least we try to do one sort of training weekend, which sometimes are away, like as a weekend, but that tends to, you know, not everyone wants to go away, or I mean, it's great when you finally make yourself go away, but you're always kind of like just the thought of packing or so on. So often they're 2 days of training and we don't have the staying together, but we try to get that if we can, and we try to have that. Yeah, so yeah, nothing really kind of special and very yeah, in Scandinavia. And the last time we lived there, what, 2 or 3 years ago, when we lived just 2 or 3 months in Denmark, then Kaya was able to go to the weekly trainings that they put on for her age, sort of in the 16 to 18 age group. They have one fitness training a week and one technical training, and the coaches sort of go out and follow them. So she was doing those technical trainings, and I guess part of what I have been always slightly guilty that well, she would be a better orienteer if we lived in Scandinavia than if we lived here. So trying to kind of provide some things a bit like what they would be getting if they lived in Scandinavia. They couldn't play hockey at all. They lived in Denmark, so you know, it's all swings and roundabouts. But yeah, so trying to sort of with the little limited resources and not as many forested areas and so on compared to Denmark, or even more Sweden, trying to do the kinds of things that that they do was yeah, the idea. And as I said, trying to be something like other sports. I mean, one of the advantages of kind of, I think I always, you know, look back really on that sort of thing of playing hockey and being a team, and you met every week and you trained together, and it's something you kind of little bit missing from orienteering. And I found it really good in Sweden when we did Tiamila, and then we did really focus as a club and train together for this one goal, and we got together. So I found that really motivating. But then the other side is, once you do have kind of family, it's people drop out of the sports when it's when you have obligated to turn up to a practice every week. So I think it's kind of good to have sort of take it or leave it. So it's an opportunity and so some people do come to them all, and they start to build that kind of team, and that's part of, you know, when we're training to get ready for an event together, so we kind of build that kind of team spirit type thing of training together, and camaraderie, so having those. But then at the same time, you don't have the same pressure you do when you're in a team sport, where you do have to absolutely turn up every week, which can, you know, just be not some, that means you can't do it because you can't do that. And so this way you can do it as much as you can, I guess. So here's an example of our most recent training, which was the Sunday just been 2 days ago. And it's not me who planned it all, it's Brianna. So I think that currently Brianna is our club coach. So she's doing most, and Carson and I kind of fill in if she's not, or we try to sort of see what she's willing and wanting to do and keen to do. So this is was what I'll flick to the next one to show. It was a 2-page maps, and we got these 2 pages on one side and the other. And so this was first exercise. So a standard pairs kind of one, where one runner's got map A and the other's got at B, and she had all the instructions there so that people could do it at another time and what they're supposed to be doing. And so, the one where the first runner goes to control, there, A goes to control 1 and says, where are you? And I think, as she says, you can do it as you want to, where the other person's sort of trying to thumb, or they completely put the map away and try not to think about it at all, where they are, and are really relocating out of the blue, or have they tried to think in their head what they've seen as they go along. So that kind of one, I like to do various variations of that when you're relocating. Sometimes try to make people run really hard to do it, because that's often this kind of relocation is in something like a relay where you have been running just a little bit too hard, and you get to the control and it's not your scaffolding and you're like, where am I? So, and you're in oxygen debt. So that kind of thing before, especially getting ready for people doing relays. But so we did this one, and then we did this. So on the left hand side was, of course, it's the same course below with it whited out, and then the idea was to do it actually as a simplification. So this is one I quite often do with the year 5 to 8 camp, where just getting people to see how much information do they need to do a leg, and really making them think about the simplifying. So you're meant to draw on what you wanted onto the whited out map, seeing what your key things that you were going to do, and as much that as then they run it to see did they pick out the key things that they actually were useful. Or often people will forget to put things a little bit to the side, so they'll put things on the line, but knowing what's to the side is how you actually will do a leg, because it's all very well if you've gone along the line, but if you haven't, you want to kind of know, if I'm seeing green, that means I've gone to the left, or if I'm seeing something, I've gone to the right, or whatever. So that is how often you have your head, and I know if I head too much to the left, I'll see this, or if I head too much to the right. So getting people to think those kind of things. And then there was a traffic lighting on the way home, which she again explained here, and the idea that you don't need as much close contact early on in a leg, so you can go a bit faster. So introducing some of those techniques. I think she, in the club email that went out with this, she linked to the your coaching website, Jean, so that people should go there to read about them as well. So trying to point people to that resource as well. We have sort of told people to look there a few times, but sort of linking this into what's on the thing. So this is kind of thing that we'll have various, sometimes compass exercises, different things, and people turn up, and at the beginning you might just give out to lots of really experienced club members who just know, and off they go to do it. And then there'll be some completely new people who you just might walk around a few controls with, and they're not going to do the relocation at all, because they're not up to that. They're still trying to figure out what white and green and anything else means on the map. So you kind of walk around and just use it as a chance to talk to them about the map, or talk to them about things. I think she did have an easy course as well for kids to do, or beginners to do this particular day. But that's kind of like a typical thing that we would have. And then these flags are still out, and this has been sent out to club members so they can go whenever they like, and it's just free for club members. Brianna prints the maps out at UC and uses the UCOX club account. But anyway, we've already said that we're happy for as a committee to pay for the map. So this is, we don't charge, we just come along. So yep, that's, and then the other thing I guess that we have been doing is these year 5 to 8 training camps. So I was trying to think, the first one, Kaya, was in about year 6 or so, and I think it was probably the time that we had got back again from being in Scandinavia, and there'd been some, or we were still getting the club emails, and there was a training camp sort of offered for her age, and where she should be getting similar things, and I thought, oh, we'll take you and we'll do our own training camp at Spencer Park, and we'll camp there we'll go and stay in a cabin, and we can take you out training. And then we thought, oh, we'll ask her friends Daisy and Isabella if they wanted to come along, and they could go and do the training as well. And then I thought, oh, well, we could just see who else wanted to come, and then we had 30 people signed up. So had been originally just like a family thing, and we may be inviting, and well, if we're going to do it, we may as well see if anyone wants. And oh my goodness, we had 30, and this sort of photos, this is from this year, this year's kids, and it's open to everyone. We sort of suggest that they bring an adult, or an adult per around 4 or 5 people so if people are coming from a particular club, shouldn't really be just sending somebody down. If I kind of know them and I know their kid's not completely hyperactive and going to get lost, well, not so much as lost, but wander off, behavioural issues of all natures, then I'm happy, because we'll usually have a few Papo spare adults to keep the numbers. But in general, I'd prefer that they do turn up with an adult that they sort of either is their parent or they view as a parent, so that we're not managing so much things like homesickness or whatever. They've got an adult that they know about, that they will go to, or who will be making sure that they're putting their sunscreen on and not losing all their things, and they've got their lunch with them when we leave in the morning, and that kind of stuff, because they are at an age where they need a bit of parenting as well as there. But yep. So we've been doing this for, I think, about 7 years or so of these, generally about the same time as the junior camp, because a little bit it was to take the pressure off the junior camp, because a lot of sort of year 7 and 8s wanted to go on the junior camp, and they were completely technically capable but not socially being appropriate for them to go to the high school camp. So we wanted, we do exercises from red through to white, so technically we're catering for the full range, but because their concentration level, they can't orienteer all day physically or what they want to do. We do other things as well, so we go to, like, the bottom photo, which is actually an old one, because that's a little Kaya and Cameron Bonar little one at the Adrenaline Forest at the bottom there. So we do some rope stuff, which they often write down was their favourite activity of the camp, which had nothing to do with orienteering at all. But anyway, they all enjoy it, and it's a good way for them to meet people. And then when they do go to events, they're happier because they know some more people. And we also go kayak orienteering usually, which is just on the Avon, and that we do have a real map now. From a few years of just using a kind of aerial photo map, we now have a proper orienteering map, and they do a kind of score event on there. Not a lot of navigation in it, but they kind of enjoy it, and yeah, it's a chance to talk to them about the different techniques and same kind of thing, but more. This is going to be more about them actually learning about skills. But again, I try to tell them that this is their chance to practice, and practice makes permanent. Practice won't make perfect if you don't practice perfectly. So let's try and do it properly, so we build up the skills. So yeah, I think that's basically the kinds of things that we do. As said, they're not. I don't think there's any big secrets in it, but it's just what we're doing. And I did. I don't think Brianna's on the call because she was helping Joe with the event that we had this evening. I said, I'll be able to take all the credit if you're not here, Brianna. But Brianna is doing most of the training at organising and coaching at the moment, and she's doing a lot of good stuff with actually personal coaching, which is something which is good. But I mean, mostly we've been doing training and sort of in the old days of when we had more time, a bit more talking to people with trying to sort of think what they should be working on specifically. But mostly now it is we provide, say Casimir, just providing training exercises and telling people what they should aim to do, but we don't really do a lot of what would we really call coaching, like the personal coaching. It's just providing training, but Brianna is doing that, helping especially Papo juniors getting ready for, say, JWOC trials and things, talking about what they should need and what individually is for them. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions, and I'll stop sharing. Have you finished your tea, Jean?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay, go.
So what's, out of all the activities that you've talked about, I'm getting quite a lot of echo. Is that from, can someone mute? Maybe if you guys can mute. Yep, if that worked, whoever muted. So out of all of the activities and types of training like that, the camp, and also considering different ages, for a smaller club that hasn't really got coaching momentum yet, what would you recommend as the place to start? The first thing to do that gets you kind of the best bang for your buck? Or maybe it's the thing that, like, the cornerstone that you have to do first before adding on other parts to the whole. Because it looks like Papo's kind of got their bases covered, but there's other clubs at the far end who
yeah, well, I think just a training day for a start, because that is sort of flexible enough to cater for most across a range. So I do think it's good to provide things for your experts as well as your kind of beginners, because the more motivated they are, the more likely they are to put something else on as well. So if you're kind of only ever concentrating on beginners, then you won't get them as involved. But most trainings can be for everybody, but especially if you sort of got the time, so you put something on and you can send, like I said, send people off on theirs, and then you can chat to the ones. But you're starting with a training morning or whatever, so that you can talk to people about skills or things. And then when people get an idea, I mean, they'll see that putting on a training is not too hard a thing. So maybe going through the coaching framework or whatever, or putting things up. But yeah, just starting with not feeling like, oh, we can't put on weekly ones, so we can't put anything on, right? So yeah, okay, one is better than none, and two is better than one, and so start with something, and then see if you get somebody else thinking they'd like to repeat it. I don't know, I mean, like, I never did any year 5 to 8 camps when I had no kids, right? So I've been kind of motivated along with my own family in that way. I mean, also I know more what they're at. So I don't know if I would have, when we actually had some quite young ones used to turn up to our trainings, Simon Bloomberg and people who were probably 13, 14s, I think, probably did turn up to those evenings that I ran 20 years ago. But that sort of younger age group, I can remember trying to do some oranges and lemons. We used to call these ones for yellows and oranges. I think I talked way over the top of them at that stage. But now, from having my own kids and having things, I am better able to see where they're at. I mean, so I'm motivated. I think you said what's best bang for your buck for a club, and that's what I would say. If it's what's best bang for New Zealand orienteering, it's concentrate on the kids, because the old ones there, they're not going to give us any world champs medals. Sorry, we're all way past it. So they might enjoy orienteering, and it's great. And I know that there is that investment. The more people do things, they'll more like to put on their things. But for me, like I always say to Chris Ford now, I say, I don't care about you anymore, Chris. I want your daughter. Your daughter's going to get us a WOC medal one day. That's her I'm going to train now. I'm not going to train you anymore. So I mean, I think the kids, and I always kind of look around, because I started orienteering at 13 or 14, and I never think I got that as instinctive orienteering as you probably have, Jean, or those that started younger. And I've kind of been trying to see, when is a good age, and I feel from about 9 on, doing lots of orienteering at that age, or enough that you really have that instinct. Because Kai's very like us as well. I don't even know too much. Like I say, she's got to put more structure into her orienteering, but she just runs because it's very instinctive to her what she's doing, because she's been doing it since she could walk. Although I always thought it's weird when we did go out, when she could walk around, she, out of her little mouth at 4 years old came how much bloody further. Which I don't know how she ever heard that or knew that, but so she's been orienteering since she could just walk, although not always appreciating it. But so I think you want to, if we really want world champs medals, we need to start people at about 7 or 8, and some of them won't carry on, but the other ones that'll have that real instinct to orienteer, like Olaf Lindness. So yeah. I don't think they're written off if they don't start that young, but the younger they start, the more likely it is to be instinctive. So from there,
I just clarify that. Oh, again, the echo that someone's got. Okay, yeah, I think what you're saying is right. There is some instinct that is possible to get when you're young, but it's about, I think, providing the opportunity so that when like the spark lights up, then they can apply their energy straight away. Because I don't think I really liked orienteering until I was about 14.
No, neither did
yeah.
Kai. I think I'm sure I've told the story of the time I was dropping Daisy off at home after I'd had them at swimming, and she asked what we were doing in the weekend, and I said, "Oh, what are we doing, Mum?" And I said, "Oh, we've got some orienteering on Sunday," and Daisy said, "Oh, can I come?" And Kai just looked at her and said, "Do you want to go orienteering?" It was just like utter disbelief that someone could actually choose to do that if they didn't have to do it. And she was about 9 or something at that age. It was incredulous. So I was very lucky that her friends actually loved orienteering and thought it was the best thing to be doing, because their parents weren't doing it at all. And this was great that Judy and Custom would take them orienteering. But now Kai does, I think, love orienteering, and she does want to do it. But I do think that with all kids, kids nowadays, they just want to lie on their phones all day long, and you have to. And there's something about, with my mum. Well, Kai and Tyron, we've a little bit experimented, because Tyron hasn't been pushed probably as much as Kai, and she does want to do them perhaps more, a little bit driven herself, but we haven't burnt Kai out anyway. I think, you don't recapture that. So I feel like as a parent, while you have some control over what they're doing, you do make them do it for as long to that point where they no longer will let you make them. And then if they don't, I don't think you necessarily go, you don't put it till they find it misery, you don't. Well, another anecdote from my time in Uppsala, there was a boy who his father made him, if he'd had a bad run, he was made to Paul Skogshen, I'm not sure if you can come, he had to run home from about 10 or 15k, sometimes from the event he had to run all the way home if he'd had a bad run. But Paul's still orienteering, he's like, I don't know, he's quite fit. But his father was military man, and that was as the way it was. So I haven't quite got, there's been no whippings or floggings on bad race days, or no dinner and straight to bed or anything. But I don't know, I think there's definitely with a lot of sports that it's so much more natural and easy when the brain is malleable and young to pick it up, and you won't get it back if you kind of wait. So while you do enough to try and get those rightened bits in the brain linked up, and then if they don't like it, fine, they'll stop. But if they do like it, they actually have a chance to get to the top because they've done it. So that's kind of my philosophy as I try. And at the camp, we sweeten it with lots of other activities that are in there, and we don't try to push them too much. So they have a good time because it's social, and they do other things, and so they think orienteering is fun, and we find the ones that are completely passionate as well in there. But that camp on its own is never going to be. You need to be really doing it regularly, but at least it starts off. At least they know about those skills, so they'll start putting them into practice when they go out orienteering. And for me, Jean's thing of really trying to build up those good habits of thumbing and keeping the map orientated and doing that. And that's what I really try to get into that camp. But, you know, they don't like to do it. Well, they like to just run. So yeah, I sort of follow them around and pop out of them in the front. Is your thumb on? Is your map orientated? And try to continuously remind them with that. Yeah, so yes, having and I always talk about having someone on their shoulder. Like, used to think, you know, Jean was on my shoulder asking me if my my book of tricks, if I had my different bag of technique tricks ready, you know, like, however, trying to get people to use their techniques to build them into habits.
Yeah, I had one little point that I thought of when you're just talking about starting young. Is part of the benefit for me was I had the connections, so that when I did decide that I really liked this and kind of wanted to get a bit better, I knew who to ask, because I had like talked to some of these people at events before. So I knew kind of who was in my club and who I could ask questions to about mistakes I made. And so that was one big benefit of starting young. It wasn't actually because I was getting some edge when I was younger. It was because the moment I decided I wanted to find an edge, I knew who to ask, and I had the resources right there. So that's one thing that's very hard to measure, but for the few that you get really keen, it's quite hard to play catch up if you are not already like in the sport, I think.
I was sort of brought home to me when Kai sort of started doing Orange. She probably was about 12 or 11 or 12, and then there was sort of women in our club who were doing it, who'd been doing it for a few years, and she just sort of went, you know, past them, and I'm like, you know, she's in the end she was a little bit faster probably, but at the beginning she wasn't really, but just the young brain just took it, you know, and she could do it, and old brains don't learn things so well. It was there for her. Just easier to get better at anything when you're younger. So
yeah, cool. Any other questions?
Yvette's got her hand up now. She's talking.
Yeah, can I say?
Yep.
So I've always felt that if about 10, 11, 12 is when kids' brains are sponges, and whatever you can throw at them at that age, whether they like it or not, or whether they're understanding it or not, they will remember when they're 16, 17, 18. So that's why I think that age is a really, really important age to just throw techniques at them, so that they start to get them embedded. And whether they're good at them or not is another matter, but actually teaching them, and you know, people might think, oh, they're too young, but actually just they learn so much. They're so interested at school of all sort of history things, and they just learn junk. They're just happy to just learn stuff at that age without really.
They're nicer, you know, before they turn into teenagers.
Yeah.
But I think, so I actually think our sort of year 5 to 8 camp is, probably one of the most valuable camps that we could be doing for the future. Actually, though it's not an ONZ supported one, it's one that we just do. But I think it doesn't matter. Ones that come to secondary school camp, that's great as well. I mean, definitely we need those. It's not the only one we need, but I think it is also helpful that they've already encountered some of those things. So when they get there, that means the next one can be more valuable and add on more.
So another thing you were saying about like Carsten, you ask him how he orienteers and he just says, oh, I just do it. I came across that all the time with Scandinavians, and one of my good Norwegian friends, when we were juniors, she would get 1 out of 5 races she'd get right, and the rest of them she'd screw up. And as she got older, she got better and better, and so that she would get 4.5 out of 5 races right, and was the best female orienteer in the world for a while. But that's because she was doing it all the time. So she couldn't orienteer very well when she was a junior. She just did. You asked her about technique, she had no idea. She just orienteered. But because when she was a teenager, so much of her training was orienteering. She just got better and better and better. And so that thing when you're saying, Jenny, sometimes you don't want to do a technique, you just go out and just run a course. I used to do that as well when I was older. Sometimes I just, in a really technical area, just plan myself little courses where I would just orienteer and just enjoy. And I'd come back with such a grin on my face because I felt like I'd found all my controls. There were no tapes out, so who knows whether I found them or not, but I decided I had. So and that's the sort of orienteering a lot of them were doing. They weren't necessarily doing technique work, but because they were doing it all the time, they didn't necessarily have to. Whereas I feel when we're living in New Zealand, you're living in the UK, you have to do the techniques because you're only doing one training a fortnight or something. So you don't have a map in your hand all the time. You don't have the technical terrain to use. So you're basically having to learn all of that technique all in a very much smaller period. So and I sort of compare it to, like, if you're a runner, you could do miles and miles and miles for your training, like if you're a distance runner, and you get really fit. If you've got the hours, if you've got the body that doesn't get injured, you can just train and train and train. And long, slow distance, I had running friends who did long, slow distance and they were really fit. But then for myself, I didn't have the time, my body couldn't cope with that. So my training was much more targeted. I did a lot more interval work and a lot less hours to get the same benefit. And I think that's really where we have to focus our energy with our anybody who wants to learn how to orienteer. It has to be targeted because we don't have the hours to just do like, Carsten can just do, because that's how he is. So yeah, I feel that we do have to target our skills and our technique in our sessions. Yeah,
thanks for that, Yvette. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's really, really clear, in New Zealand that, that's what we have to do, since the maps are a long drive and the events are fewer and far between. So, Jean, you've got a question.
Yeah, I've just got something to throw in on, because Yvette and I came through the same system there in the UK, where we learned a lot of stuff here, Yvette, a lot of technical stuff, and I think it put us in a good place. Orienteering wise, and for that reason we could only do it was because we couldn't do training every week, every day, and the things that Scandinavians do. I think with all that, I think it still needs to be fun as well. So I think we need to teach our young people the skills, those techniques, and still make it fun. And that's why some sort of structure to a session is good for them. If you send them, you can do an occasional one where you just send them around a course and they're trying to do as good as they can. But actually, in the end, if you give them something to focus on each week, something different, you are giving them that set of skills that Yvette was talking about. So for us, I reckon it's a happy medium between doing the skills, but also then every now and again having just a fun event or a relay or something, or a mass start that's a bit different. That's it.
Well, Jean, Yvette, and Jenny, how do we make up for the inaccessibility of good terrain just out the back door?
We target. I find, I must admit, I find Wellington a very difficult place to live, to be an orienteer. But that's what we have to do. We have to target training sessions and skill sessions in particular areas that are amenable to those skills you're wanting to try and practice. And then Jean's bit is actually making those enjoyable, so people want to come and do that. Now, that's not something that I'm so good at, but that's definitely. I mean, you do them, Michael, by having lots of different varieties of orienteering and things to get people to remain interested. The thing with Jenny was saying, with a lot of the Swedish and like Norwegian and Danish, a lot of their trainings you go like 2 or 3 times a week, and hang around at the clubhouse and eat pizza, or have food at them as well, and that sort of thing brings people together a lot more. But our kids are very busy, so I take my kids all over the place, and I drop them off and pick them up on carpool, and everything's done in a quick hour and in, out and off again sort of thing. So I don't know whether that's conducive to the world we live in.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. That's good. Cool. Anthony.
One thing we've found, if you want to know how to make it fun, is ask them. That's a really good way of making every course fun. I had one, or every training session fun. I had one mum come and tell me after one of our training sessions that she has problems getting her daughter up every day for school, but never out of bed at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning to come training at 8 a.m. So I think one of the easiest things to do is just ask them, what do they find fun? Because it's a bit of a problem if half of them say they love running up hills and the other half say they're loving running down hills. Well, then, you're going to only keep half of them happy at any one particular point of time. But if there's something that, just one thing in each training course that keeps them each happy, that's then we can design the courses or the training and development around it. That's really helpful. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. If training is few and far between, then we want to make sure they come, and getting that emotional hook in there, I think, is really important. So we've used up our hour. That was a lot of information in there. I've got some good notes, and hoping I get the presentation from Jenny to package with the notes, and this recording will also be available to everyone who missed it. So thanks a lot for bringing the ideas, everyone. Yeah, Anthony? Oh, yep, that's just a clap. Okay, thank you. Yep. Yeah, lots of great ideas there. Thanks.